This is the story of one of the most powerful families in the world. The British royal family. Everybody knows them. But this family hides many dark secrets. Some well known and some completely hidden. So let's take this deep dive inside the royal family. In 1919 and 1926, Nerissa and Catherine were born to the brother of the Queen Mother, Elizabeth. These two girls were first cousins to Princess Elizabeth, who would later become monarch. The two sisters were born with severe learning difficulties, and following the death of their father in 1930, they were both admitted to a mental health institution in 1941. 22 years later, in 1963, a reference book stated that both sisters had in fact passed away when they were in fact alive, but isolated from their family, secluded and alone. Nerissa, the older of the two, died in 1986, aged 66. Her grave was marked only with a name tag and a serial number, further showing the lack of respect that the royal family had shown her. Her younger sister Catherine stayed in the hospital until 1997, when it closed amid claims, possibly a factor in her sister's death. This story shows how the royal family managed to get away with isolating members of their own family, which they deemed undesirable, unworthy, and inferior. However, our next two examples, as much as they'd wish, could not be concealed as easily. In July 2016, Prince Harry and Suits actress Meghan Markle announced to the public that they were dating. This was generally received quite well by the general public, although some British newspapers would take a controversial stance on their relationship, views which would ultimately influence many readers across the UK. The press, unsurprisingly, became increasingly obsessed with the couple, and Harry, with the trauma of his mother's death in 1997, recognised the danger of all this media attention, although many outlets did not see much issue with it at the time. In this article from The Sun, one of Harry's friends said, and quote, "His privacy is important to him, but they are clearly not afraid to be seen in public together." Unknown foreshadowing of what would eventually happen. The couple would eventually get married in May 2018. Public reception was pretty positive. The newspapers sporting headlines such as "The Look of Love," "Kistery," and "Harry Ever After." Eventually, the media did what media does. Whenever something controversial happens, capitalise on it, no matter of the detrimental effects. In January 2020, Harry and Meghan announced that they would be stepping back from their royal duties and move to North America. At the time, the reasons for this decision were unknown, but it was all too clear to see. Harry was acting smartly. He, from a young age, had seen firsthand the consequences of overbearing media outlets, tabloids, and newspapers all fighting for the latest news on her mother, especially during her divorce with Prince Charles, which ultimately led to her death in 1997, where paparazzi allegedly followed her into the tunnels and reportedly took photos of the princess as she died. Harry, being only 13 at the time, was traumatised and was taking action to protect his wife, his son, and himself. However, UK tabloids would not see it this way. In 2021, the couple would have an exclusive interview with Oprah Winfrey, where they both outlined the true reasons of why they withdrew. Meghan revealed that not only was there racism within the family, there were reports of people wondering about the skin colour of their son.
There's a conversation with you?
With Harry.
About how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Ooh.
They didn't want him to be a prince or a princess, not knowing what the gender would be, which would be different from protocol, and that he wasn't going to receive security.
What?
It was really hard.
clear evidence of imperial attitudes carrying over, alleging that Meghan was an outsider who could not become a royal simply because of her ethnicity. Harry would also reveal the mental toll the media would place on him, especially after his mother's death.
I was so angry with what happened to her and the fact that there was no justice at all. Every time I put a suit and tie on and having to, do the role and, sort of like go, right, let's get in face, look in the mirror, right, let's go. Before I even left the house, I was pouring with sweat, I was in the fight or flight mode. Panic attacks, severe anxiety. But unfortunately, when I think about my mum, the first thing that comes to mind is always the same one over and over again. Strapped in the car, seatbelt across, with my brother in the car as well. And my mother driving, being chased by 3, 4, 5 mopeds with paparazzi on. And then she was almost unable to drive because of the tears. There was no protection. I needed to do this for my family. This is not a surprise to anybody. It's really sad that it's got to this point, but I've got to do something for my own mental health, for my wife's, and for Archie's as well, because I could see where this was headed.
As expected, the UK tabloids did not respond lightly. The Daily Mirror deemed it the worst royal crisis in 85 years. The Daily Mail said, "What have they done?" These hyper-British newspapers firmly believed the couple were faking this for attention. The obvious question being, why was this a crisis when just 2 years before this, it was revealed that Harry's uncle had been friends with, well, you know who, and had engaged with underage intercourse with a 17-year-old girl. The attitude towards racism within the royal family has been downplayed by large media outlets and tabloids owned by Rupert Murdoch, such as the Daily Mail and The Sun. In defence of the prince, Harry was only acting within his best interests for himself and his family. And here they were, branding his wife as a liar and someone who stole him away. The media will never understand the effect that Diana's death had on Harry, and how it shaped him and influenced him into the man that he is today. That's because they caused it. They were instrumental to her death. They chased her to the very moment that she dropped. And Harry believed that if he stayed, his mental health would decline even further. The safety and protection and support that the family was meant to provide to him, the safety and protection he desired from his family, wouldn't come. They would fail him, just like his mother, and just like the Queen's cousins. Now, let's move on to arguably the biggest royal scandal to date, which involves some unlikely participants. In 2011, media reported that the friendship of Prince Andrew and American financier and convicted offender Jeffrey was producing a steady stream of criticism. In December 2014, a Florida court filing by these two lawyers alleged that Prince Andrew was one of several prominent figures to have participated in sexual activities with a minor, later identified as Virginia Giuffre, who was allegedly trafficked by Epstein. Giuffre asserted that she had sex with Prince Andrew on 3 occasions, including a trip to London in 2001 when she was just 17 years old, and later in New York and in the US Virgin Islands. She alleged that Epstein had paid her $15,000 to be with the Duke in London. Flight logs show that the Duke and Giuffre were in the places she alleged the sex happened. Andrew and Giuffre were also photographed together with his arm around her waist and an Epstein associate standing in the background, producing the infamous photo. The Duke's supporters have repeatedly claimed that the photo was fake and edited, though it would be unlikely. Giuffre stated that she was pressured to have sex with Andrew and, quote, wouldn't have dared object, as Epstein, through his contacts, could have had her killed or abducted. In November 2019, the infamous interview with BBC Newsnight had Andrew recount his relationship with Epstein and addressed the allegations. Andrew said that he had met him in 1999 through Maxwell, the Duke said that he did not regret his friendship with Geoffrey, saying, "The people that I met and the opportunities that I was given to learn either by him or because of him were actually very useful." Andrew denied the allegations of what happened on the 10th of March 2001, as she had claimed, because he said he had been at home with his daughters after attending a party at Pizza Express with his elder daughter.
You know that you were at home with the children. Was it a memorable night?
On that particular day, we now understand is the date, which is the 10th of March. I was at home. I was with the children. I'd taken Beatrice to a Pizza Express in Woking for a party at I suppose sort of 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
He also said he had no recollection of ever meeting her, and that he had absolutely no memory of a photograph being taken. Andrew admitted to staying in Epstein's mansion for 3 days in 2010 and described it as a convenient place to stay.
She was very specific about that night. She described dancing with you and you profusely sweating, and that she went on to have bath, possibly.
There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time.
You were staying at the house of a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay, and I admit fully that my judgment was probably coloured by my tendency to be too honourable.
Obviously, he received massive public scrutiny. A member of the royal family in cohorts with a convicted offender, although it couldn't be confirmed that Geoffrey had killed himself in August 2019, thus playing to the advantage of Andrew, as the primary witness was not in the picture, and the events of the following 2 years with Harry and Meghan further buried this story away from public eyes. The tabloids initially criticised Andrew, but not to the level they would criticise Harry for wanting to take care of his mental health, thus showing the true power and influence the media has on people. In 2022, Andrew would settle out of court with Miss Geoffrey for an undisclosed amount. Some reported to be as much as £12 million, possibly of taxpayers' money. So yes, us, the British public, paid to protect this guy. And who knows how many more scandals will reach the limelight. The royal family has of course had many more scandals and incidents over the years. With the passing of the Queen, the future of the monarchy seems very uncertain, with some groups advocating for the total abolition of the monarchy entirely, and the transition to a British republic. Very intriguing ideas, but the royal family's influence is still ever present. Tourism, culture, media, and so much more. Britain without the royal family would be like the USA without McDonald's, or Germany without the Brandenburg Gate. With King Charles and Prince William in the hot seats, it seems the royal family will continue for the foreseeable future.